Hey, welcome everybody to another discussions on great leadership. It's my pleasure to bring an outstanding guest to you today, Mr. Ron Cooper. Ron is a 22-year Air Force pilot, fighter pilot, I should say, who brings the values of honesty, sincerity, and high energy into his consulting engagements. And he and his wife, Marty, run the Cooper Culture, which helps principal leaders create and maintain high performance cultures, and their service includes things such as personal performance coaching, keynote speaking, events, workshops, and personal business growth coaching. So to say the least, Ron knows a lot about leadership. So let's dive in here. And Ron, everyone gets the same first question, and then we'll just see where it goes from there. So the first question is, what is great leadership to you? How would you define or profile or illustrate what a great leader is and does?
Thanks, Steve. It's good to be with you and your listening audience. You will probably get as many responses, different responses, as the number of people you ask, what is a great leader? But I'll just tell you from my standpoint, and quite honestly, Stephen, you are writing about it in your book of Humanity Leadership. But it is a matter of caring. As a leader, everyone deserves to be led well, my opinion. And everyone wants to be led well. And a part of that is, how well do you know me? Do you care about me, my strengths? And do I feel I am well integrated into the team, which then goes back to leadership? Have you defined what your team is, what our goals are, and so forth? And if we are fully integrated and synchronized with that, Stephen, to me, that is some of the fundamental principles of great leadership. And part of that great leadership is having people and processes in place to resolve any challenges we have. I don't need to litigate you, Stephen. I just know we will work through anything and everything. So that's a bit of a start.
That's a great start. And I love that focus of everyone deserves to be well led. That's a 180 mindset for most leaders who kind of feel like, hey, I'm the leader. It's my job to lead and you have to follow me. So can you elaborate a bit more on that mindset?
Well, Stephen, I'll interject right here that just because my business card has some words on it doesn't mean I'm a leader. It means maybe I'm in a leadership position, but it doesn't mean I'm a leader.
Excellent. I love that. So can anybody be a great leader, or is there a roadmap to getting there?
I think everybody can be a great leader. There are some people who feel you're born that way. I believe we create and we become great leaders. It is a matter of the books we read, the people with whom we associate. And as we are with those who have a like mindset, you mentioned that early on. When we have a similar mindset, we become like each other. And I will tell you one aspect of I've had to develop this is to be curious. There was an early part of my life, I would not ask you a question because, and it goes into a much longer story, I had no confidence in myself that I was smart enough to know. And so just a very short answer, I was not curious as a young kid. I am a self-described incurably curious person now because I have much more confidence in myself now than what I had as a kid. And there are four men who were very instrumental in my life. So without going into great detail, Stephen, I do believe that leaders are made, not necessarily born.
I agree with that, Ron, wholeheartedly. And I think the only exceptions are, and it's a personal decision. Some people don't want the responsibility of leading others. They're great researchers, scientists who want to work in the laboratory by themselves. But what they don't understand is you have to lead yourself. And so all of us can be a leader, at least of ourselves, if nothing else. So I like that.
I'll build on to that very briefly, Stephen, that, the word fly, I did not originate this, but first, lead yourself. And we have to know ourselves. And I believe there's an aspect of being vulnerable. I'm weak in whatever. And Stephen, I want to have you as a part of my team to complement my weaknesses, but I have to know who I am as a leader. And when I do, then I hopefully am confident enough that I can express to you that I'm not good in these areas. I need someone on my team who is good. And that's why I want to bring you on, Stephen. So that's a part of us integrating fully well.
Excellent, excellent. And for those of you watching this, really inculcate what Ron's talking about here. If I had to disagree with Ron on anything, I'd take one word and change it. Weaknesses I call gaps. So we want to close those gaps, and there's so much negative connotation around that word weaknesses, particularly in the business world. But either way works. But that's what you want to do. I always said that I hired for my gap areas. For instance, I was really, really good. And this is not bragging, but I can really interpret a research study. If I look at the results, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, I'm not talking about marketing research here, not medical research or scientific research, but marketing research, I can interpret those results. I can understand flows are going to be, what decisions to make out of that. But I can't put a research questionnaire together to save my life. And so I hired a gentleman as my research director when I was vice president of marketing in a bank, because this guy was excellent. He knew how to craft a research questionnaire, and that is an art. And I learned a bit from him, but I would still hire him again today if I had to create one. So close those gap areas.
No, I appreciate Stephen, and I'll interject very quickly here the concept that words matter. And I did mention weaknesses, and so you like the word gaps, and I'm not going to argue any of those words. But I do know that if I mention the word weakness with some people, that may either offend them or make them feel something less. So I want to learn people and their personalities, and this takes us off into a much greater study. But as I get to know people and their personalities, I'll know whether the term weakness is appropriate or nope, I need another word. But I want to adapt myself to you, Stephen.
Everything can be motivational, just we have to know the individual.
Yeah, that's right on.
So how do you develop a great leader in an organization? What are your tips for, say a senior leader who wants to develop their leadership and build their bench strength across the organization? How do you go about that?
I am a great advocate of mentoring, and you do mentor people who want to be mentored. And to be an effective mentor, you have to be, I believe, on a growth plan. So what is my growth plan? What areas in which do I need to grow, and what am I working toward? So if I'm on a growth plan, that's one thing. And John Maxwell, from my perspective, had coined the term, be a river, not a reservoir. And that is, as I am learning, as I'm reading, don't just store it, but rather pass it on to other people who want to learn. And so in the context of being curious, I do want to help people be curious. I want for them to learn, and for them to learn and for me to pass on, I have to continuously fill my bucket, so to speak. And but that's a matter of learning from others, such as you, Stephen, your books, other authors. And as we learn from other people, it is a matter of discussing and applying the principles we learn to other people. And then, of course, we need to live those principles. And so it's one thing to speak it and not live it. No, we've got to live it and speak it, but we want to reach out to others and develop those who want to be developed.
That thing about learning, continuously learning, there's a great Chinese proverb which says, we teach what we need to learn. And so often I tell people when I'm coaching, mentoring, I say, well, you need to talk to somebody about this, and you're going to learn along the way. So that's really good. So speaking of learning, Ron, how can you, first off, and then if so, how can you teach or encourage someone to become more curious?
I'm going to give you my personal example, Steve, that
Okay.
As an early age, I largely remained silent, and I would never ask a question in school because I would leave no doubt in your mind and others, my perception, I'm stupid. And I had a very low confidence level. And so those two work together to just reinforce in my mind that I am stupid, not capable of learning. Therefore, I don't want to prove it to you. I will not ask a question. But as I worked with these four men, they each, and I don't know that any of the four of them used the term, which to me are golden words. I believe in you. Now, I'll tell you very briefly, my grandfather, uncle, high school football coach, and my father-in-law were four very instrumental men. I don't think they ever used those four words, I believe in you, but I just know through interaction they did. And so various things they would say that I documented as, I call it, data points in my mind. And when I felt and I knew they would take time to spend with me. They would explain different things. I felt comfortable asking questions. And it was over a period of time, I became a curious person because I knew I was being ignorant is not the same thing as being stupid. Being ignorant is I just don't know. And so I learned from other people who do know. And now that is it was gosh, I don't know, it could have been a 12, 15-year process, Stephen, where I overcame that part of my life where I felt comfortable asking questions. And now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a self-described incurably curious person because I want to know. And I have an insatiable desire to learn, and I want to help others reach that type of position in their life. I don't want for them to continue to believe what I used to believe in my early age.
You're a great example, great illustration of someone who's gone from a fixed mindset, as Carolyn Dweck wrote about, to a growth mindset and changing that perspective that, you fixed mindset, you lock yourself in. I can't learn. I'm dumb. I'm stupid.
Yes.
I'm not going to excel at this particular area, and therefore I'm not going to try because I know I won't excel at it. So going from that fixed mindset, and you're very lucky to have those four mentors. It sounds like in your probably late teenage years to your mid 20s or late 20s. Those are very formidable years. So for those of you out there who are parents or guardians or coaches or whatever you are, that you're engaging with the youth of today, this is what you need to do. Listen to what happened to Ron and change their fixed mindsets to things are possible out there. Have that growth mindset.
No, and I'll build on to that a little bit, Stephen. To our listeners, parents, grandparents, or whatever the position is relative to another person, it is possible. You would be working with people like me for a period of time, and you're wondering, am I getting through? Am I having any positive impact at all? Because it took me a while to transform my negative mindset to a positive mindset. But I would encourage our listeners, our viewers, don't give up on someone who you believe has the desire to learn. It may take many years for us to transform a mindset to where we believe in ourselves and we don't know how to put into words our gratefulness for what you're doing in our lives, Stephen. It could be years later when we look back and say, Stephen is the one who helped me get through. I want to document this and make sure he is aware of the very positive influence he was in my life.
Oh, that's great. Gratitude is such a powerful force, both emotionally and spiritually, that we don't express gratitude, unfortunately, enough in today's world. So hopefully that's an area all of us can improve in. What do you think are the biggest challenges that organizational leaders face today? And I say organization because I want to get your thoughts beyond the workplace. So whether they're nonprofit, religious organizations, military organizations, and any organization that has people in it, which is the definition of an organization, what are the key challenges you think leaders are facing these days?
Well, I can tell you one of them I know factually is happening as we are on the hopeful positive side of COVID. COVID has caused a lot of isolation in cell phones. So the combination of COVID, isolation, and cell phones, we have turned to nonverbal means of communicating. And so I'm not saying that that's a whole array of negative, but I will say, Stephen, I don't think any form of virtual communication will be as positive as you and I communicating in real time. Yes, I'm a believer in text, email, and so forth, but I'm a bigger believer in you and I communicating in real time. And so we have heard the term somewhat recently, quiet quitting. And that quiet quitting sometimes is a result of, I don't know that you care about me, Stephen, that I'm at home. I'm okay. There's nothing wrong with working remotely, but I don't know. I'm just here by myself. I don't know that I'm really a part of the team. We don't communicate effectively enough for me to know that I'm an integral part of your team. So one of the challenges, Stephen, I think we are having to deal with is how can we very effectively communicate with, and you write about it very eloquently in your book, we function best with connected relationships. And so how can I feel I have a connected relationship even though I work remotely? And you can maintain that, but it's incumbent on leaders to determine how we can help those within our influence feel wanted, valued. I know your strengths, I know your gaps, and I know exactly where you fit in the context of values, goals, and vision. I want you to know exactly where you fit in our organization. A lot more that needs to be unpacked with that, Stephen, but I think that's one of the challenges we have to help people feel totally connected, appreciated. I know exactly where I fit in this organization, and I know what I need to do to improve, and I want to further the purpose, goals, and values of the company, the organization in which I'm functioning. People don't care how much you know
No,
until they first know how much you care.
and if you combine that phrase with what you talked earlier about asking questions and listening, and here's where I think this is the challenge for leaders today. Prior to COVID, we're all rough and tough leaders. We have to have all the information, all the knowledge. We can't show empathy. Empathy is a weakness. No, coming out of COVID, we need those human connections that you just talked about. And even remotely, when we have a conversation with somebody, we don't need to jump right into the results. Hey, how's that project going? Where are we? Are we on time? Are you on budget? What are the problems? We need to spend that 90 seconds or 2 minutes saying, hey, how you doing? How's the family doing? What are the issues in your life? Or if they mentioned something before, I got a gentleman I'm talking to right now that he had to leave early yesterday because he was taking his daughter's softball team to an event. So obviously the next time I talk to him, the first question is going to be, hey, how'd the softball game go? It's those little personal connections that are so critical. And that's how leadership has changed, I think, in the post-pandemic. And so your insights here are highly valuable, and look forward to you writing a book someday and getting all your words of wisdom down on paper.
No, thank you, Stephen. I'll tell you very briefly. I wrote a chapter in a book of which I'm a co-author. I called it Steal or Kneel. Can we speak as a leader with a resolve, but yet the kneel part is have compassion for others? That I want to speak to you with resolve. I want to be a good critical thinker. I've analyzed, assessed all of the facts and factors. I know when I make a decision, Stephen, I know what the impact is on you. So my compassion is, here's the reason I made a decision, Stephen, and you may be impacted by that. I want for you to know before I go public with this decision, how I'm taking care of you. So that's just a part of I've made a decision with resolve, but I want you to know I've got compassion for you. I want to take care of you.
Yeah, and that's not negative too. I made a decision, and this is how it's going to positively impact you. But I made a decision. I'm going to delegate something to you because you're going to learn from this process. So it's not always negative on it. So
exactly right. I know the impact on you with the decision I'm going to make, and I hope it's a positive across the board. But I do want you to know the impact on you, and I hope you're inspired to excel even better, even more with the decision that I'll be making.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Ron, let's wrap this up. I'm going to give you the big, great open-ended question. What's a final thought or a final piece of advice you want to leave with our audience today?
I think what it may be, Stephen, is make sure we're on a growth plan. It is incumbent in being a great leader that we do make decisions with resolve, and we do want to be totally accountable for the decisions we make. But a part of that accountability is, yes, we hopefully have assessed all of the facts and factors involved in that decision. But I do want the very best for my people, and in the context of purpose, values, and goals, I want for you to know each of those, our organization's purpose, values, and goals, exactly where you fit with this. And that's communication. And the way I communicate with you, Stephen, may be slightly different from the way I communicate with another person simply because of personality. But I want to make sure that I am communicating effectively with you. And I can't do that until I know you thoroughly. And I want to get to know you. And that will take some time, but I want you to know I do want to know you. And part of that knowing you is that I care about you. When we put all that together, a lot of people will say, that's the culture I want. And if I have to accept a lower salary working with you, I will, because the fulfillment of being with you in your presence, I will take home. And then when things are right at home, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to return to work satisfied and fulfilled, or at least I'll know we'll be able to work through anything. A lot more that can be unpacked with that.
There's a hell of a lot more. So, well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Words of wisdom from Ron Cooper. And you can see why he excels at helping leaders, principal leaders, create those high-performing cultures. Ron, has been just an outstanding opportunity to talk with you. I'm glad we had this opportunity, and I wish you continued success.
I love it, Stephen. Thank you for this opportunity.